All right, my friends, let's do the HafTorah of this week. The fact is, I just finished doing it, but I forgot to record it, so I'm doing it again. Okay. The HafTorah of this week is really from Yechezkel. It's from Yechezkel, from this week's Torah portion. Reading. Kadoshim is from Yechezkel, and God is reproving the Jewish people as usual about how they've strayed for the way of God, but nevertheless, he still loves them. But we're not reading that this week, because this week is this Shabbat, because this Shabbat is the Shabbat, the day before the first day of next month, Rosh Chodesh, the day before Rosh Chodesh. And when Shabbat comes the day before Rosh Chodesh, so we read a special HafTorah, a special Torah portion, which comes from the book of Samuel, depicting the relationship between King David and Saul, who wanted to kill him, King Shaul, and Shaul's son, Yonaton, who loved David. They were deep soul friends. And Yonaton was loyal to David, and his father, seemingly against his own father. He wasn't really against his own father. His father wanted to kill King David for no reason. And so King David, this week's Torah, HafTorah, begins as Dovid is in big doubt as to what to do. He sees that King Saul hates him. He's jealous of him. There was one big battle where King David went out to the battle. King David was part of the household. He was a king, but he was a king in secret. And there was one big battle where the king with Goliath, and they came back, they won this tremendous big battle, and people were saying, King Saul is a great warrior, he is fantastic, he killed thousands. King Saul felt pretty good. And they said, but King David killed tens of thousands. And he became jealous. Other things also happened to make King Saul jealous, and King David was the king, but he kept it quiet. It was a secret. In any case, so King David is never really sure what's going on in King Saul's mind. He was also prone to depression. And King David, that was one of the reasons he brought David there, was to play for him, to take him out of this melancholy that he had. So he was never sure when he was going to have one of these mood swings and hate him. Now, the fact of the matter is why was King David hated? What was he even telling us this whole story for? Because King David, he's the Messiah, he's the Mashiach, and the Mashiach we're waiting for is Mashiach ben Dovid. And the same thing that happened to King David happened to the Jewish people. He was hated for no reason. He was born, everybody hated him, right from the very outset, and rejected, and et cetera, et cetera. But nevertheless, it was King David, right? If you read the book of Psalms, you see that a good portion of them, and we read that book, by the way, the whole book of Psalms we read on Rosh Chodesh, on this Shabbat, because this is the last Shabbat of this month of Nisan, the last Shabbat. So, and the day after Shabbat will be Rosh Chodesh. That's why we're reading the special HafTorah, Machar Chodesh. So King David had a lot of enemies. From the day that he was born, he had enemies. And same thing with the Jewish people. But in the end, that's the Mashiach, and he'll gather all the Jews together. And that's what the prophet Yechezkel is talking about over here. But let's do the prophet, what we're going to do this week. Here we go. Let's see if we can find this here. Okay, ready? Yes. Am I recording? Yes. Okay, Vayomer Yonaton said to King David. Now, King David, he was in hiding. He was uncertain. Should he come back and present himself in front of King Saul or not? Because King Saul really didn't have any real reason to hate him, but he really did hate him. The fact is, he hated him, and he showed it a few times. Once he threw a spear at him. So we didn't know that this anger, did it go away or not? So they met in a field. Yonaton and David, they met in a field. And Yonaton said, tomorrow is the first day of the month, of the next month. And my father makes a big feast. And so listen like this. you can't come. If you come, you don't know what's going to be. So don't come. V'nifkarata, and your absence will be noticed, ki pokeid moshavecha, because King Saul will pay attention to the place where you sit. Now, usually King David would sit right next to King Saul, because he was the only person that could sort of take him out of these periods of melancholy that he had. And so he would sit next to King Saul. But King Saul he wouldn't be there. So his son, Yonaton, sat next to him. And then eventually Yonaton got up and he gave the place next to his King Saul to Avner ben Ner, that he was the head of the army. So we'll see. Let's go. Vishilashti, and the third day, in other words, tomorrow is going to be the first day of Rosh Chodesh. The day after that is the second day of Rosh Chodesh. The third day, Tered me'od ubote elamakom asher nistarta. And on the third day, so keep far away and go to the place where you hid. You hid, 1 second. A place where we can speak in private. 1 second, is that right? 1 minute. Yeah. Okay, that's right. Well, a place where you hid, and you should stay by the stone, which is called Even Ezel. Even Ezel is some stone of travelers. That was like a marking point where people would meet, or whether they would know where they were. They could get their bearings from this place. You hide over there, and I will come over in this area, in that area where this special big stone is, and I'll shoot 3 arrows, as though I'm shooting at some sort of a target, and I'll come together with a boy, my arrow carrier, or whatever is my caddy, whatever that's carrying the arrows, and I'll yell to him, "Go and find the arrows." Meanwhile, you be hiding. Listen to what I say. If I say to the child, "These arrows are from where you are, a little bit over." Right, they're sort of like between me and you, or whatever. Then, and I say, take them and bring them to me. Then, kacheno, take them. Then, don't worry, you won't have any problems, because there's peace, and you won't have any problems, and you can, there'll be peace for you. My father doesn't hate you. Then don't worry about it. Everything will be well for you. That's going to be a sign. Now, meanwhile, King David, why does he have to make all this hiding this? So that his father won't get wind. But the child can go back and say, "Hey, your son just met with King David." The child will say, "I just went out, where were you?" Will ask King Saul. "I went with your son. We were just shooting arrows." He was shooting arrows if Yonaton, by the way, was a big warrior. He was a very big warrior. And there was a whole story about how he fought against the enemies as well. So he was practicing shooting. So he says, if I say that the arrow is like what is between me and you, or something like that, it's nearby, then you know you haven't got any problems. But if I yell out to the child, the arrows are very far away, keep going, you have to know that God is telling you to run away. My father wants to kill you. No matter what happens, you should know that God is between me and you forever. Yonaton realizes that something special with King David, and he realizes his qualities, and therefore he has a tremendous, deep admiration and connection with David. David hid, and there came the first day of the month, and the king, meanwhile, in his palace, back in the palace, the king is sitting to eat bread with all of his ministers and his family. The king sits down the first time, and the first day of Rosh Chodesh, 2 days of Rosh Chodesh, and in his chair, which is next to the wall. And Yonaton stood up and he gave Avner his place right next to Shaul. Yonaton himself was a little bit apprehensive about what his father was going to do because he didn't know. So his father said, hey, where is David? Below Dibur Shmuel Mu'uma, but Shaul didn't say anything about that on the first day. He wondered where King David was because he said to himself, listen, maybe King David, he's impure, maybe he had to go to the mikveh, maybe there's something impure about him. So therefore, I'm not worried. I'm not worried. Maybe he's got a good excuse. Right. He didn't want to make the meal impure. Now, these people, usually purity and impurity is only in the temple, but there were some people that accepted on themselves to be stringent with their food as though it was holy food, to keep it away from impurity. That's called chulin ala teres hakodesh. In other words, they would eat regular food, but they would apply to it all the stringencies and the restrictions of holy food. So he said, King Saul was one of them. So he said, well, King David, probably, that David doesn't want to come, probably because of that. But on the second day of the month, so King Saul said to himself, there's no excuse now. He said to Yonaton, his son, why is King David not here? He wasn't here yesterday and he wasn't here today. What's going on? So Yonaton answered Shaul and he said, Nishal Dovid. Dovid asked me, he made a request. I forgot to tell you, Dad, wrong. He asked me and he said that he wants to go to Beit Lechem, where his family was. That was King David was from Beit Lechem. And he said, please let me go because it's a big feast of my family. So let me go to the city of Beit Lechem. And he asked me, my brother, and now if I find favor in your eyes, please let me go and I'll see my friends and my family in Beit Lechem. What do you say? And I won't come to eat with the king this Rosh Chodesh. I mean, there's 12 Rosh Chodesh feasts every year, every month. At the beginning of the month, they make a feast. So I'll miss one of them. What do you say about that, Dad? Said Yonaton to his father, Shaul. Vayicharav Shaul. All of a sudden, Shaul fell into a tremendous anger. Yonaton, and he said to him, Ben Navot Mardut, you are disgusting, rebellious. You're the son of a disgusting, rebellious woman. The one opinion, the Radak says that when everybody sees that you aren't loyal to me, they'll say that maybe your mother cheated or that you come from a different woman. You're not royalty. Right? You're royalty. Either maybe your mother had relations with someone else and that you're born from that. Your mother, you're born from that. You're not really even my son. And that's why you're not loyal to me. So he said, you're the son of Nabot, the mother. Your mother was a rebellious woman. I know that you like King David, for your shame and the shame of the nakedness of your mother. That's like as close as we can get to like foul language in the Tanakh. He called him, he was blazing angry. All the days that Ben Yishai is living on the ground, you and your kingship can never be firm. And also mine. And now get out of here. Bring King David, go to your friend King David and bring him over to me because he is punishable with death. And Yonaton says to his father, Yonaton, what did he do? What? I don't understand. Why are you angry with him? What did he do? He didn't do anything wrong. Shaul took the spear and he lakoto, the spear to throw it at Yonaton. And Yonaton knew that that's it. His father decided to kill David. So Yonaton stands up from the table in anger, and he didn't eat anything on that day. On the second day of the new month feast, didn't eat anything because he was very, very did he say, saddened on what happened, what his father said about King David, and he cursed him out, and he was threatening him. So in the morning, Yonaton went out to the field to the appointed place with King David, to deal with David, and he brought a small young boy with him. And he went out to this appointed place, right? That's Evan Ezel. And he said to the young boy, run, find the arrows that I am going to shoot. And the child ran, the young boy ran, and he shot arrows right in that direction. And the child ran to this place of the arrow that he shot, and Yonaton yelled out. Meanwhile, King David is hiding by the stone. He's listening to everything. Yonaton says, after that, says, isn't the arrow further away from you? It's far away. The arrow is far away. Yonaton yelled after the son, hurry, after the young boy, hurry and don't stand there, go and get the arrow. And the child ran, got the arrow, and he brought it to Yonaton, right? He brought it to his master, Yonaton. And Yonaton said, you did a good job. But the child doesn't know anything. He doesn't know that Dovid is hiding there. But Yonaton and Dovid, they also knew, they had this predetermined sign. Yonaton gave all of his arrows and his bows and everything like that to the boy. And he said, okay, go back to the city. I'm going to sort of stroll around here for a while. And that would sort of remove suspicion from him. He went out to shoot. The child ran away. Came David from the one second, 1 minute. That's right. He came from the south side of the stone. He fell on the ground and he bowed down 3 times, and they hugged each one. They kissed each one, is Dovid and Yonaton, and they cried, and Dovid cried very, very much because he knew what this meant, that either he would get killed or something would bad. In the end, of course, Shaul and Yonaton, they both get killed. And Shaul, from this time on, King Saul begins this pursuit of King David. He takes his armies and he runs after King David. It's a very, very strange story. Read it in the book of Samuel, right in the beginning in the book of Samuel. Yonaton said to Dovid, go in peace. We have sworn in the name of God, saying that God will be between us and our seed and my seed between us forever. End of this week's HafTorah. Good. Have a good Shabbat with Mashiach now. God willing, tomorrow, 8:15, Friday morning, there will be a class. We'll learn a Sicha of the Lubavitcher Rebbe. Hope to see you all there. Shalom.